The morning sun streamed through the blinds as Olivia Chen poured her first cup of coffee. The familiar routine of checking her phone while the toast browned in the toaster was something she never thought twice about. Until today, her phone buzzed with notifications. Not the usual one or two, but dozens. Then hundreds. Her stomach tightened as she scrolled through message after message, email after email. "Have you seen this? Is this really you? I'm disappointed. I thought better of you." Confused, she clicked on a link from her colleague. The website loaded slowly, revealing photos of her. Photos that had been altered. There she was at last summer's climate conference. But now it looked like she was handing something to a representative from Green Life Industries, a company known for fighting environmental regulations. The caption read, "Environmental scientist sells out, accepts payoff to falsify pollution data." The toast burned. The coffee grew cold. Olivia sat frozen, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. "This is impossible," she whispered to her empty kitchen. "I've never even spoken to anyone from Green Life." Her phone rang. It was Dr. Takahashi, the director of the research institute where Olivia had dedicated the last 8 years of her life, studying the effects of industrial chemicals on local water supplies. "Olivia, I need you to come in immediately." His voice was different. Not the warm, encouraging tone she'd grown accustomed to, but something colder, distant. "I don't understand what's happening," she said, her voice barely steady. "Neither do I," he replied, "but there are more photos and emails. Someone sent our entire board copies of what appear to be correspondences between you and Green Life executives, discussing how to alter your research findings. The board is meeting in an hour. I suggest you get here before then." The drive to the institute was a blur. Radio hosts were already discussing the scandal. Breaking news in the scientific community today as evidence emerges of corruption in environmental research. She pulled into her usual parking spot. The security guard, Lou, who normally greeted her with a friendly wave, looked away as she passed. Inside the building, conversations stopped when she entered rooms. Colleagues she'd worked alongside for years suddenly found reasons to be elsewhere. The Research Institute occupied an old, converted warehouse, all exposed brick and beams with glass-walled labs and offices. Usually, Olivia loved the openness of the space. Today, it felt like being on display in the worst possible way. She made her way to her office, only to find the door already open. Inside, the IT department was disconnecting her computer. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Sorry, Dr. Chen, director's orders," said the technician without meeting her eyes. Standard procedure during an investigation. The word hit her like a physical blow. "Investigation? I haven't done anything wrong," she said. But the technician just shrugged and continued working. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from her brother halfway across the country. "You're trending on social media." "What's going on?" Before she could reply, Dr. Takahashi appeared in her doorway. "The board is ready for you." The boardroom was on the top floor with windows overlooking the river. Olivia had always loved the view. Today she couldn't even glance outside. 10 pairs of eyes followed her as she entered. Some looked angry, others disappointed. A few seemed almost satisfied, as if they'd been waiting for her to fail. "Dr. Chen," began the board chairwoman, a stern woman with silver hair, "we've received some very disturbing material concerning your research practices." "None of it is true," Olivia said firmly. "Perhaps not. But we have emails, photos, and what appears to be early drafts of your research with 2 very different sets of conclusions. One showing significant pollution from Green Life factories, another showing levels well within acceptable limits." "Those must be forgeries," Olivia insisted. "I've never created alternate versions of my research." "The timestamps and metadata suggest otherwise," said another board member, a man who'd always seemed supportive of her work in the past. They showed her printouts of emails she'd supposedly written. The words were formal, cold, calculating, nothing like how she actually wrote. But they were sent from her work email address discussing payments for adjustments to her research findings. "This is impossible," she said again, her voice rising slightly. "Anyone could have made these up." "I'm being framed." "By whom?" asked the chairwoman. "And why?" The answer seemed obvious to Olivia. "My latest research directly connects Green Life's new manufacturing process to dangerous levels of chemical runoff in 3 counties. They're planning a major expansion that my findings would block. They have everything to gain by discrediting me." A younger board member leaned forward. That's a serious accusation against a company that employs thousands in this region and has always maintained they follow environmental guidelines. They don't, Olivia said firmly. The data is now in question, interrupted the chairwoman. As is your credibility. The meeting lasted another hour. Questions came at her from all directions. How did she explain the photos? The emails? The alternate research draft? Each time she denied everything, the board members exchanged glances that made it clear they weren't convinced. Finally, the chairwoman closed her folder. Until this matter is resolved, you will be placed on administrative leave. Your lab access is revoked, and we must ask you not to communicate with your research team or access institute files remotely. You're suspending me? Based on obvious forgeries? We're following protocol, Dr. Chen. We take allegations of research misconduct very seriously. A committee will investigate thoroughly. Olivia felt the room spinning slightly. My research, the actual findings about green life, they need to be published. People are getting sick because of these chemicals. Publication will be delayed pending investigation, said the chairwoman with finality. Walking back through the institute was even worse than before. Everyone knew. Whispers followed her. A few faces showed sympathy, but no one approached her. No one spoke up. Her research assistant Wei caught up with her near the exit. I know you wouldn't do this, he whispered urgently. I've worked with you for 3 years. This doesn't make sense. His loyalty brought tears to her eyes. Thank you, she managed to say. They've locked us out of your data, Wei continued, glancing around nervously. But I made a backup last week for the presentation we were preparing. It's not everything, but... He slipped a small hard drive into her hand. Be careful, she warned him. I don't want you caught in this mess. Wei nodded. Find out who's doing this. We need your research. The drive home was worse than the drive in. Now her phone was exploding with notifications. Journalists requesting comments. Old friends asking if the rumors were true. Her social media accounts flooded with messages from strangers calling her corrupt, a sellout, a fraud. She pulled over twice, unable to see through her tears. Not from sadness, but from a burning, overwhelming anger. Years of careful, precise work, all to protect communities from harmful chemicals, now twisted and used against her. And while she sat in her car, Green Life would be moving forward with plans that would continue poisoning the water supply. At home, she found reporters waiting. She pushed past them without comment, locked her door and closed all the blinds. Then she turned off her phone, unplugged her landline, and sat in the growing darkness of her living room. The silence was broken only by a soft thud against her front door. When she eventually checked, she found a rock had been thrown, wrapped in paper with a single word scrawled across it. Liar. Olivia leaned against the wall, sliding down until she sat on the floor. 8 years at the Institute. A reputation built on careful, thorough science, all apparently destroyed in less than a day. She thought of the families she'd interviewed during her research, the worried parents whose children had developed unusual rashes and breathing problems, the farmers whose livestock had started dying after drinking from streams near the Green Life plant. They were counting on her research to prove what they already knew: something in the water was making them sick. I'm not giving up, she whispered, to her empty house. She plugged her laptop into the hard drive. We had given her and began reviewing her data. There had to be something in here, some clue about who was behind this and why exactly they'd targeted her now. Green Life was the obvious answer, but she needed proof. As night fell completely, Olivia Chen made a promise to herself. They thought they could shame her into silence. They thought wrong. Somewhere in her research was a truth powerful enough to overcome all their lies, and she was going to find it. 3 days had passed since Olivia's world turned upside down. 3 days of ignoring calls, avoiding the news, and trying to make sense of what had happened. The rock through her window had been joined by spray paint across her garage door. Science not for sale. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd barely slept, spending hours combing through the data backup that Wei had given her. Her research findings were clear. Chemical compounds unique to Green Life's new manufacturing process were showing up in alarming concentrations in local water supplies. The correlation with increased health issues in those areas was undeniable. This wasn't controversial science, it was straightforward cause and effect. So why go to such lengths to discredit her? The expansion plans, yes, but something didn't add up. Greenlife could have challenged her research through normal channels, demanded peer review, or funded counter-studies. The personal attack seemed desperate, almost panicked. Olivia's doorbell rang, breaking her concentration. Through the peephole, she saw a woman she didn't recognize, mid-30s, curly hair pulled back, notebook in hand. Another reporter? She was about to walk away when the woman spoke. Dr. Chen, I'm Nina Rodriguez from the Independent Herald. I don't think the story about you adds up, and I'd like to hear your side. Olivia hesitated. The media had been brutal, repeating the accusations without questioning their source. But something in Nina's voice sounded different, genuinely curious rather than accusatory. Against her better judgment, Olivia cracked the door open. Why should I trust you? Nina met her gaze steadily. Because I've been investigating Greenlife for 6 months. Your story landed in the middle of my research, and the timing is suspicious. Also, the evidence against you is too perfect, too complete. Real life is messier. After a moment's consideration, Olivia opened the door wider. You have 30 minutes. Inside, Nina didn't record anything or take photos. She simply listened as Olivia explained her research, the accusations, and her suspicions. The thing is, Olivia said, pacing her living room, my complete findings were scheduled for publication next month. The preliminary data was already concerning enough that the Environmental Protection Agency was planning a site inspection at Greenlife's main plant. But the full report shows something worse. What? Nina asked, leaning forward. Their new manufacturing process uses a chemical compound that breaks down in water, creating a byproduct that isn't covered by current regulations. It's a loophole. Technically, they're within legal limits for all regulated substances. But this byproduct is what's making people sick. Nina wrote rapidly in her notebook. And your research proves this connection? Beyond reasonable doubt, Olivia confirmed.
And the expansion would triple production using this same process. Nina tapped her pen thoughtfully.
So discrediting you before publication would not only save the expansion but also prevent regulatory agencies from closing that loophole. Exactly. Nina closed her notebook. I need to look into something. The email headers from those fake messages, if I can get copies, there might be technical details that could help prove their forgeries. The Institute has them. I have sources, Nina said with a hint of a smile. But I need you to do something too. Follow the money. Greenlife is a major employer here, but who actually owns them? Who benefits most from this expansion? After Nina left, Olivia felt something she hadn't in days. A spark of hope. She opened her laptop and began searching for information about Greenlife's corporate structure. The company had been founded locally 50 years ago, but had been acquired by Vertex Global Holdings 10 years back. Digging deeper, she discovered that Vertex was a complex web of shell companies and investment groups. Names of board members were surprisingly difficult to find for such a large corporation. Hours into her research, Olivia's phone rang. An unknown number. Normally she would ignore it, but something made her answer. Dr. Chen. The voice was male, nervous. You don't know me. I work in IT at the Research Institute. I need to talk to you, but not over the phone. Can you meet me? The man, who called himself Patrick, suggested a coffee shop 20 miles away. Paranoid, perhaps, but Olivia couldn't blame him. She agreed. The drive gave her time to think. If Greenlife had orchestrated this campaign against her, they would have needed access to her email account, photos from conferences she'd attended, and details about her research. An inside job seemed likely. Someone at the Institute who could access her files. The coffee shop was half empty when she arrived. Patrick was already there, a thin man with glasses and a constant nervous movement to his hands. He spoke quietly, checking over his shoulder frequently. I monitor the network security at the Institute, he explained. 3 weeks ago, there was an unauthorized access to the server that I flagged as suspicious. Someone logged in remotely using Dr. Takahashi's credentials at 2 a.m. Not his usual pattern. They accessed several accounts, including yours. Olivia felt a chill. Did you report this? I did, but was told it was probably just Dr. Takahashi working late from home. I was instructed to ignore similar alerts in the future. He pushed his glasses up. Then last week it happened again. This time they spent hours in your email and research folders. The Institute knows about this? Patrick looked uncomfortable. Someone in administration does. Look, I could lose my job for telling you this, but what they're doing to you isn't right. I thought you should know your accounts were compromised before these allegations surfaced. He slid a USB drive across the table. This is the access log. It shows the IP addresses of the computers that connected to our network using stolen credentials. Back home, Olivia examined the logs. The IP addresses meant nothing to her, but she forwarded them to Nina, who promised to have a tech-savvy contact trace them. The next morning, Olivia's doorbell rang again. This time it wasn't a reporter or colleague, but a woman in her 60s with gray hair and determined eyes. Behind her stood two younger adults. Dr. Chen? I'm Rose Winters. This is my son Tom and daughter-in-law Lily. We live in Millfield, downstream from the Green Life plant. We've come because we heard what they're doing to you. Olivia invited them in, surprised. Rose spoke for the family. Our well water turned strange last year. Odd smell, sometimes a film on top. Tom and Lily's little boy started getting rashes. Then their dog died after years of drinking from the stream on their property. When the local clinic started seeing more cases, they contacted your research team. You came out, took samples. I remember, Olivia said softly. Your family's case was one of our early data points. We know you wouldn't take money to lie about what's in our water, Rose continued firmly. People around here are worried. If they can silence a scientist like you, who's going to help us prove what's happening to our families? Olivia felt a lump in her throat. I'm trying to clear my name and get the research published. We want to help, Tom said. There are dozens of families affected. We've started a community group. If you need witnesses, water samples, anything, we're here. After they left, Olivia called Nina with renewed determination. I have people willing to testify about the health effects. If we can connect this to the falsified emails, I might have something, Nina interrupted excitedly. Those IP addresses? One of them traces back to a PR firm called Strategic Communications Partners. And guess who their biggest client is? Greenlife? Vertex Global Holdings, Greenlife's parent company. And here's the kicker. The chairman of Vertex, Richard Harmon, sits on your institute's board of directors. Olivia sat down hard. Harmon. He's one of the board members who seemed most convinced of my guilt. Conflict of interest much? Nina said dryly. There's more. Strategic Communications specializes in what they call reputation management, but what looks a lot like coordinated smear campaigns. They've been linked to several cases where environmental activists or whistleblowers were discredited. So we can prove they accessed my accounts? Maybe. The IP address isn't definitive proof on its own. They could claim coincidence. But combined with Harmon's undisclosed conflict of interest, it's enough to raise serious questions. That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. The pieces were coming together, but she still lacked the smoking gun that would definitively prove she was framed. Without that, it would be her word against a powerful corporation with seemingly unlimited resources. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check your email. Tao Wei had sent her a message from a new email account. The subject line read simply, "Found something." The attachment was a screenshot of a calendar entry from Dr. Takahashi's schedule. Meeting with R. Harmon Ri Chen situation, dated 2 days before the fake emails were discovered. Olivia stared at the screen, anger and vindication washing over her in equal measure. Takahashi, her mentor, the man she'd trusted, had been part of this all along, and he'd left a digital trail. She forwarded the screenshot to Nina with a message. We need to move fast. Once they realize what we have, they'll try to erase the evidence. Nina replied immediately, coming over? I think it's time we confront them directly. As dawn broke, Olivia gathered everything they'd discovered. The access logs, the screenshot, her research data, the testimonials from affected families. For days she'd been on the defensive, reeling from the attacks. Now she was ready to fight back. The truth was finally coming to light, and it was more damning than anyone had imagined. Nina arrived at Olivia's house with a tall man in tow. This is Miguel Reyes, she explained. He's our newspaper's legal advisor. I thought we might need him. Miguel shook Olivia's hand firmly. Nina showed me what you've gathered. It's compelling, but we need to be strategic about how we use it. They gathered around Olivia's dining table, now covered with printouts, notes, and laptops. Miguel studied the evidence carefully. The access logs and the calendar screenshot give us leverage, he said. But companies like Vertex have armies of lawyers who will claim it's all circumstantial. We need something more concrete. Ideally, someone on the inside willing to confirm the plan to discredit you. That's a tall order, Olivia sighed. Who would risk their career to help me? Sometimes people surprise you, Nina said, especially when they realize they're on the wrong side of history. As if on cue, Olivia's phone rang. An unknown number again. Dr. Chen? The voice was hesitant, female. My name is Diane Powell. I was an executive assistant at Strategic Communications Partners until yesterday. Olivia put the call on speaker. What do you mean until yesterday? I quit, Diane said simply. I couldn't be part of it anymore. I've been working closely with the team handling the Vertex account. 6 weeks ago, they brought me into a special project they called Chen neutralization. I didn't know what it meant at first. Nina and Miguel exchanged glances as Diane continued. They had me organizing meetings, handling confidential files. I started to piece together what they were doing to you. Yesterday, they were celebrating their success, laughing about how they'd destroyed your credibility. That's when I knew I had to leave. Do you have proof? Miguel asked cautiously. Documentation of these meetings or the project? Better, Diane replied. I have recordings. The room fell silent. Finally, Olivia found her voice. You recorded them? Strategic has a policy of recording all client meetings for quality assurance, Diane explained. It's in the fine print of their contracts. The recordings are supposed to be confidential, but I had access to the server as part of my job. Before I left, I downloaded several files, including a planning meeting with Richard Harmon, where they explicitly discussed framing you. Miguel leaned forward. Ms. Powell, what you're describing could be invaluable, but I have to warn you, there might be legal consequences for you in sharing these recordings. I know, Diane said quietly. But what they're doing isn't just wrong, it's dangerous. People are getting sick because of Green Life's chemicals. How could I live with myself knowing I helped silence the scientists trying to expose the truth? They arranged to meet Diane at Miguel's office later that day. When they hung up, Nina turned to Olivia with a smile. Still think no one would risk their career for you? As they prepared to leave, Olivia's phone buzzed with a text from Wei. More people want to help. Meet at Rose's house tonight, bringing others from the lab who don't believe the lies. The pieces were falling into place faster than she could have imagined. Yesterday, she'd felt alone against a powerful enemy. Today, allies were emerging from unexpected places. At Miguel's office, Diane was already waiting, a nervous woman in her 40s with kind eyes and determined set to her jaw. She handed Miguel a flash drive. There are 5 recordings on there. The most important one is from April 3rd, a meeting between the strategic team, Richard Harmon, and Dr. Takahashi. Miguel connected the drive to his computer and opened the file. The recording was crystal clear. After some initial pleasantries, Richard Harmon's voice came through the speakers. We need to discredit Chen completely before her final report goes public. The preliminary findings are already causing trouble with the EPA. If the full data is released, our expansion is dead in the water, and we could face massive liability for existing operations. Then, most painful of all, Dr. Takahashi's voice. I can help guide the narrative. As her direct supervisor, my concerns about her research methods will carry weight. But we need more than my word. A third voice identified by Diane as Jack Walsh, Strategics Director. We've accessed her email already. We can create a trail of correspondence with Green Life that suggests financial incentives for favorable findings. With those in place, we'll release the story through several outlets simultaneously. Olivia closed her eyes, the betrayal cutting deep. Dr. Takahashi had been a mentor, someone she'd trusted implicitly. They talked later about how to manipulate her research data, Diane explained, fast-forwarding the recording. Dr. Takahashi provided them with access to her files and helped identify the most vulnerable points where they could create doubt. Nina took rapid notes while Miguel listened intently, occasionally asking Diane to clarify certain points. When the recording ended, he sat back thoughtfully. This is exactly what we needed, he said. It proves conspiracy, corporate espionage, defamation, multiple criminal acts. The question now is how best to use it. I want my name cleared and my research published, Olivia said firmly. But more importantly, I want Green Life held accountable for what they're doing to the community. With your permission, Nina said, I'd like to write the story, but not just yet. I think we need to gather more support first. That evening, they drove to Rose's house in Millfield. What Olivia expected to be a small gathering turned out to be much more. The modest home was filled with people. At least 30 adults crowded into the living room and kitchen, with more arriving as they watched. Rose greeted them at the door. "Word travels fast in small communities," she said with a smile. "These are all folks affected by Green Life's chemicals. And look who else came." She pointed to a corner, where Wei stood with 4 other researchers. From the Institute, Olivia's team members who had worked on the water study with her. "We believe in the science," Wei said simply when Olivia approached them. "And we believe in you." One by one, people stood to tell their stories. A farmer whose crops had failed after irrigating with water from a stream near the plant. A mother whose children developed mysterious rashes after swimming in the local lake. A retired doctor who had noticed increasing respiratory problems in his former patients. Each story added weight to Olivia's research, putting human faces to the data points in her study. Nina moved through the crowd, recording testimonials and taking contact information. In the middle of the gathering, Wei pulled Olivia aside. "There's someone else who wants to talk to you," he said, guiding her to the back porch where a man waited in the shadows. Olivia recognized him immediately. Alan Foster, Green Life's environmental compliance officer. "I've been following what's happening to you," he said without preamble, "and I can't be part of it anymore." "You know about the campaign against me?" Olivia asked, surprised. Alan nodded grimly. "Not initially. But after the story broke, there were celebrations at the executive level that seemed inappropriate. I started digging and found internal memos about your research that contradicted what they were saying publicly." "They know you're right, Dr. Chen. They've known about the chemical byproducts for at least 2 years. And they did nothing?" "Worse than nothing," Alan said bitterly. "They accelerated production despite internal studies showing the risks. When their own scientists raised concerns, they were reassigned or let go. I've been documenting everything, waiting for the right moment. When I heard about this meeting tonight, I knew it was time." He handed her a thick folder. "These are internal test results, memos, and emails going back 18 months. They prove Green Life knew their new process was creating dangerous byproducts and chose to hide it." Olivia's hands trembled as she held the folder. "Why are you doing this?" Alan looked out at the darkening sky. "I have children too. They swim in these same waters, breathe this same air. I became an environmental compliance officer because I believed in protecting communities, not poisoning them for profit." By the end of the evening, Olivia had not just evidence of the conspiracy against her, but a community of support, affected families, ethical colleagues, and whistleblowers from within the very corporations trying to silence her. As they drove back to town, Nina glanced at Olivia. "How does it feel? To go from pariah to having all these people in your corner?" Olivia looked at the stack of testimonials, the flash drive with recordings, and Alan's folder of internal documents. "Overwhelming," she admitted. "Yesterday I was fighting to clear my name. Today I realize this is about something much bigger." "That's the thing about truth," Nina said thoughtfully. "Once it starts coming out, it takes on a life of its own. And tomorrow we bring that truth directly to those who tried to bury it." For the first time in days, Olivia felt not just hope, but a quiet confidence. The tide was turning. The truth was gaining momentum. And soon, those who had tried to shame her would face the consequences of their actions. Morning light filtered through the blinds as Olivia reviewed their plan one last time. Miguel had arranged a meeting with the Institute's board of directors at 10 a.m., officially to discuss Dr. Chen's situation. Unofficially, it would be a confrontation with those who had orchestrated her downfall. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Nina asked, pouring coffee into travel mugs. "We could just go public with everything we have." Olivia shook her head. "I need to look them in the eye. They tried to destroy my reputation, my career, my life, all to keep poisoning a community for profit. I won't hide behind press releases." "You won't be alone," Nina assured her. "Miguel and I will be there. So will Wei and the others from your team. And Rose is bringing representatives from the affected families." "And I have the evidence," Olivia said, patting her laptop bag containing the recordings, documents, and testimonials they'd gathered. She felt oddly calm. The anxiety that had knotted her stomach for days had been replaced by a steady resolve. When they arrived at the Institute, the scene was chaotic. Word had spread about the meeting and reporters clustered around the entrance. Employees paused to watch as Olivia walked in, head high, flanked by Nina and Miguel. No one tried to stop them. The boardroom looked exactly as it had the day Olivia was suspended: the long, polished table, the view of the river, the stern faces of board members. But something was different. Now Richard Harmon sat at the head of the table beside the chairwoman, his presence making the conflict of interest painfully obvious. Dr. Takahashi was there too, looking uncomfortable. "Dr. Chen," the chairwoman began formally, "we agreed to this meeting at the request of your legal representative. But I must stress that our investigation is still ongoing and—" "Let's cut to the chase," Miguel interrupted smoothly. "Dr. Chen is not here to defend herself against false accusations. She's here to present evidence of corporate espionage, defamation, and scientific misconduct, not by her, but against her." Richard Harmon leaned forward, his expression carefully neutral. "That's a serious allegation. I assume you have something to substantiate it." "More than something," Olivia said, opening her laptop. "Let's start with this." She played the recording from Strategic Communications, the meeting where Harmon, Dr. Takahashi, and the PR team explicitly discussed framing her. As their own voices filled the room, the board members' expressions shifted from skepticism to shock. Dr. Takahashi seemed to physically shrink in his chair. Harmon's face hardened into a mask. When the recording ended, Olivia continued calmly. "I also have access logs showing unauthorized entry to my email account and research files from IP addresses traced to Strategic Communications. And I have testimony from Diane Powell, who worked on the Chen neutralization project until her conscience wouldn't allow it anymore." The chairwoman looked stunned. "Dr. Takahashi, is this accurate? Did you participate in framing Dr. Chen?" Before he could answer, the boardroom door opened. Rose entered, followed by several Millfield residents carrying poster-sized photographs, children, with rashes, dead fish from the stream, cloudy water samples. "We're the people behind Dr. Chen's data points," Rose announced. "The ones getting sick from Green Life's chemicals. We thought you should see our faces before you decide whose side you're on." The chairwoman glanced at the Institute's legal counsel, who nodded slightly. "I believe we should hear them out," she said. For the next 30 minutes, the room was filled with stories: parents describing their children's mysterious illnesses, farmers watching livestock die, elderly residents developing breathing problems after decades of good health. Each testimony was calm, factual, and devastating. When they finished, Alan Foster stepped forward. "I'm Green Life's environmental compliance officer," he said, placing his own stack of documents on the table. "These are internal records showing that Green Life has known about the dangers of their chemical byproducts for at least 2 years. They've been hiding test results, falsifying regulatory filings, and ignoring their own scientists' warnings." The mood in the room shifted perceptibly. Several board members were now looking at Harmon with undisguised contempt. "Mr. Harmon," the chairwoman said coldly, "it appears you've abused your position on this board to further Vertex's corporate interests at the expense of scientific integrity and public health. Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Harmon's composure finally cracked. "You have no idea what's at stake here," he snapped. "The expansion represents billions in investment, thousands of jobs. We were protecting the region's economic future. By poisoning its people," Olivia countered. "By destroying my career because I discovered the truth? That's not protecting anything except your profits." Dr. Takahashi stood suddenly. "I want to make a statement," he said, his voice unsteady. All eyes turned to him. "What I did was wrong," he said simply. "I convinced myself it was for the greater good. The Institute receives significant funding from Vertex subsidiaries. When Richard approached me about concerns with Dr. Chen's research, I told myself I was protecting the Institute and all the other projects that depend on that funding." He looked directly at Olivia for the first time. "But that was a lie I told myself. The truth is, I was protecting my position, my comfort. I betrayed everything science stands for, and I betrayed you, Olivia. I'm prepared to resign immediately and cooperate fully with any investigation." A heavy silence followed his confession. Olivia felt a complex mix of emotions: anger at the betrayal, a grudging respect for his admission, and underneath it all, a deep sadness for the mentor she had lost. Harmon stood abruptly. "This meeting is over. You'll be hearing from Vertex's legal team." "Sit down, Richard," the chairwoman said sharply. "We're just getting started." What followed was a tense 2 hours of discussion. The board voted unanimously to reinstate Olivia immediately, with a formal apology. They established an emergency committee to review her complete research findings and fast-track publication. Dr. Takahashi's resignation was accepted, and Richard Harmon was removed from the board. But the most significant decision came at the end. In light of these revelations, the chairwoman announced, "The Institute will be filing a formal complaint with the Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Justice, and the Securities and Exchange Commission regarding Greenlife and Vertex Holdings actions. We will cooperate fully with any investigations and make all our findings publicly available." As the meeting concluded, Nina pulled Olivia aside. "This is bigger than we expected. The board is actually doing the right thing." "It's not enough," Olivia replied quietly. "The formal investigations could take months or years. Meanwhile, people in Millfield are still getting sick." She looked around the room at the families who had come to support her, at Way and her colleagues, at Alan Foster, who had risked his career to expose the truth. "We need to go public now. Not just with what they did to me, but with everything, the water contamination, the cover-up, the health effects. People need to know what's in their water today, not after some government investigation wraps up." Nina nodded. "I've already drafted the article, but there's a risk. Once we publish, Vertex will fight back with everything they have." "Let them," Olivia said firmly. "The truth is on our side." That afternoon, Olivia made the hardest decision of her career. Rather than waiting for the Institute's publication process, she chose to release her complete research findings directly to the public. Nina would publish the full story in the Independent Herald, while simultaneously, all the evidence, the recordings, documents, test results, and testimonials, would be uploaded to a dedicated website. "Once it's out there, we can't take it back," Miguel warned. "Vertex might sue you personally." "I understand the risk," Olivia said. "But every day we wait is another day children in Millfield are drinking poisoned water." As evening approached, they gathered at Nina's newspaper office to finalize everything. The article was ready. The website was built. All the evidence was organized and uploaded. "Are you sure about this?" Way asked Olivia one last time. "The Institute's backing you now. You could let them handle it through official channels." Olivia looked at the faces around her. People who had stood by her when the world turned against her. People who believed in truth over profit, health over convenience, integrity over career advancement. "Some things are more important than following protocol," she said. "This is one of them." With a deep breath, she clicked, "Publish." Within minutes, the story was live. Within hours, it would be picked up by major news outlets. By morning, Greenlife and Vertex would face questions they couldn't ignore or deflect. The truth was out, and nothing would ever be the same. The morning after the story broke, Olivia woke to her phone buzzing constantly. Messages, calls, emails, all flowing in faster than she could process them. Nina's article had gone viral overnight, picked up by national news outlets and shared thousands of times on social media. "You need to turn on the news," Way texted. Olivia switched on the television to find her face on the screen. The headline scrolling beneath it read, "Scientist Vindicated, Corporate Conspiracy to Silence Whistleblower Exposed." The reporter stood outside Greenlife's main facility where protesters had already gathered holding signs with slogans like, "Clean water is a right and people over profit." "In a shocking turn of events," the reporter said, "environmental scientist Dr. Olivia Chen has been cleared of all allegations of research misconduct. Evidence released yesterday proves she was the target of a coordinated smear campaign orchestrated by Greenlife Industries and their parent company, Vertex Global Holdings. Dr. Chen's research, also made public yesterday, shows dangerous levels of chemical contamination in local water supplies." Her doorbell rang. It was Nina, carrying coffee and bagels, looking tired but exhilarated. "We did it," she said, stepping inside. "The story's everywhere. Greenlife's stock is in freefall. The EPA just announced an emergency inspection of their facility, and the governor's office called for an immediate public health assessment in Millfield. Olivia took the coffee gratefully. What about Vertex? Any response? A very carefully worded statement claiming they're deeply concerned about the allegations and launching an internal review. They've placed Richard Harmon on administrative leave and are distancing themselves from strategic communications as fast as they can. So they're in damage control mode. Full panic mode, Nina corrected. Your website with all the evidence has had over 1 million views already. They can't put this genie back in the bottle. Throughout the day, developments came rapidly. The Environmental Protection Agency sent a team to the Green Life plant, temporarily halting operations pending a complete safety review. The State Health Department set up testing stations in Millfield to screen residents for chemical exposure. 3 class action lawsuits were filed on behalf of affected families. By evening, Olivia's phone rang with a call she hadn't expected, a senior official from the Department of Justice. Dr. Chen, we're reviewing the materials you've published. We'd like you to come in tomorrow to discuss potential criminal charges against executives at Vertex and Green Life for environmental violations, falsification of regulatory filings, corporate espionage, and obstruction of justice. That night, as Olivia tried to process everything that had happened, Rose called from Millfield. You should see it here, she said, her voice thick with emotion. The whole town is celebrating. People who've been sick for months finally have hope that someone is listening. The children are making you thank you cards. In the days that followed, Olivia found herself in a whirlwind of activity. She testified before state legislators, met with environmental officials, and gave interviews explaining her research in terms the public could understand. The scientific community rallied around her, with colleagues from around the world reaching out in support. 2 weeks after the story broke, the Institute held a formal press conference to apologize publicly for its handling of the situation. The chairwoman stood at a podium looking directly into the cameras. We failed Dr. Chen, we failed the scientific community, and we failed the public, she said. In our institution's 50-year history, there has never been a breach of scientific integrity as serious as what occurred here. We are implementing new protections to ensure no researcher ever faces retaliation for their findings, no matter how inconvenient those findings might be for powerful interests. The Institute announced the creation of the Chen Fund for Environmental Justice, a grant program to support research into pollution affecting vulnerable communities. Olivia was offered her position back, along with a promotion to lead a new department focused on water quality research. 3 months later, the impact of Olivia's stand continued to ripple outward. The EPA used her research to close the regulatory loophole that had allowed Green Life's chemical byproduct to go unmonitored. Cleanup operations began in Millfield, with Vertex forced to fund comprehensive remediation of the contaminated waterways. Criminal indictments came down against Richard Harmon and 2 other Vertex executives for their roles in the cover-up. The PR firm, Strategic Communications, shut down amid multiple investigations and lawsuits. Dr. Takahashi, who had fully cooperated with authorities, avoided criminal charges but faced a permanent ban from federally funded research. On a warm Saturday morning, Olivia drove to Millfield for a community gathering at the local park. The occasion was the installation of new water filtration systems throughout the town, systems that Vertex had been court-ordered to pay for. As she parked her car, she spotted a familiar face, Alan Foster, the Green Life whistleblower who had provided crucial internal documents. I didn't expect to see you here, she said. Greeting him with a smile, Alan shrugged. I've been working with the cleanup team as a consultant, trying to make things right in whatever small way I can. Not so small, Olivia corrected. Your documents were the smoking gun that proved corporate knowledge. We might not have won without them. I still wish I'd spoken up sooner, he said quietly, before so many people got sick. You spoke up when it mattered most, she assured him. That's what counts. The park was filled with families, many of whom Olivia recognized from her research interviews. Children played on swings while adults set up tables for a community picnic. A banner stretched between 2 trees read, Clean Water New Beginning. Rose approached, pulling Olivia into a warm hug. Our hero arrives. Come meet everyone, though I think they all know who you are by now. As Olivia moved through the crowd, people stopped to thank her, share their stories, or simply shake her hand. One elderly man gripped her fingers tightly, tears in his eyes. "My grandson's rash is finally clearing up," he said. "The doctors say he'll be fine now that he's not drinking that poison anymore." "You saved him. Dr. Chen, you saved all of us." The simple ceremony to mark the new water systems was held beside the stream that ran through town, the same stream that had carried Green Life's chemicals for years. Now the water ran clearer, with fish beginning to return, a symbol of renewal. The town mayor invited Olivia to say a few words. Standing before the community, she found herself overcome with emotion. "When I first began studying the water in this area, I was just following the data," she said. "I had no idea where it would lead or what it would cost. When they tried to silence me, I almost gave up. But something kept me going. It wasn't just the science. It was the people. Your stories. Your children. Your right to know what was in your water." She looked out at the faces watching her. Families whose health had been threatened. Colleagues who had stood by her. Whistleblowers who had risked everything for the truth. What happened here matters beyond Millfield. It shows that when we stand together for truth, even the most powerful interests can be held accountable. It shows that science should serve people, not profit. Most importantly, it shows that one voice speaking truth can become many voices, and many voices can change the world. Later, as children splashed in the clean water of the stream, Nina found Olivia sitting quietly under a tree, watching the celebration. "Quite a change from a few months ago," Nina observed, sitting beside her. "Hard to believe they almost destroyed your career." Olivia nodded. "I keep thinking about what would have happened if I'd stayed silent. If I'd accepted their lies to save myself." "But you didn't," Nina reminded her. "You fought back." "Not alone," Olivia said. "I had help. You, Miguel, Way, Rose, Alan, Diane. So many people risked something to stand with me." "That's how change happens," Nina said thoughtfully. "One person refuses to be silenced, then another joins them, then another. Before you know it, you have a movement." As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the park, Olivia watched the community that had come together, not just to celebrate clean water, but to celebrate the power of truth over deception, of courage over intimidation, of collective action over corporate power. They had tried to shame her into silence. Instead, she had revealed a truth that changed everything, not just for herself, but for countless others who would never know her name but would benefit from her refusal to be silenced. And that, Olivia realized, was perhaps the most meaningful victory of all.